Hey, welcome to the show. It's Friday, it's not the 20th, is it? It's the 30th of July, 2021. And these are a bunch of stories which I think you might find interesting, or I found interesting, or maybe they weren't being reported that much in the media. And I want to start with this. There's a crazy billboard maker running amok all over southern France, and he is fucking French President Emmanuel Macron's shit up. So much so that Macron is suing him for, well, this. In French, it reads, "Obey, get vaccinated," and the armband has been altered to represent Macron's centre-right party. Michel Ongy Fleury put one of these at the entrance to the Mediterranean town of Toulon, the capital of the Var region and home to an important naval base. I don't know what half this shit means, but this guy's like the Banksy of France. Franksy? In fact, according to The Guardian, Fleury owns about 400 of these advertising billboards in that region, two of which he says he uses to highlight the excesses of the measures announced by the executive, then denied the next day, then amended the day after that. To give you context, the Var region holds just over 1 million people, and just in case you were wondering, this isn't the first that France has heard of Fleury. He was fined €30,000 in 2019 for supporting anti-Macron protesters in a poster criticizing France's most watched news channel, BFM TV. And from 1999, he also spent 7 years in jail for planning to blow up his former employer, which, he denies. And in this next story, I just wanted to congratulate Australians because we have found Australia's zombie apocalypse plan, or maybe pandemic plan, especially if you're on the East Coast, because our plan is New Zealand. A new study found that temperate islands were the best place to survive in a global collapse. Countries were ranked according to their ability to grow food for their population, protect their borders from unwanted mass migration, and maintain an electrical grid and some manufacturing ability. Islands in temperate regions and mostly with low population densities came out on top. In fact, this whole New Zealand end of the world thing isn't new either. In 2018, co-founder of PayPal said that he thinks that New Zealand is the future, capital F. He even has an arrangement with influential Silicon Valley entrepreneur Sam Altman, where in the event of civilization collapsing, they both get on a private jet and fly to a property Teal owns in New Zealand. That property being a 477-acre former sheep station on the South Island. I highly suggest that you read that article. I'll link it down below. It's about how Silicon Valley's elite and US billionaires have been buying up acreages in New Zealand and building bunkers on them. And this particularly flared up after the 2016 US election. That article concluding that this is the role that New Zealand now plays in our unfurling cultural fever dream, an island haven amid a rising tide of apocalyptic unease. The aim of this paper in the Sustainability Journal is not so much to wank off these countries like New Zealand to say how great they are, but kind of to slag off all the other countries which aren't so great, telling them what they need to improve on in order to be, you guessed it, sustainable. A globalized society that prizes economic efficiency damaged resilience, and that spare capacity is needed to exist in food and other vital sectors. And failing that, Tasmania was on there too. The paper calls these collapsed lifeboats, and on that list was also the UK, Ireland, and Iceland. And then let's talk about a country that's a little less of a global lifeboat and more likely going to be the thing that rocks it back and forth and capsizes it. Actually, you know what? Don't worry about it. Whatever I'm about to tell you about this story, it doesn't mean anything. So, you can turn this video off. It's cool, do it. There's a really cool music video over here. This story really kicks off in the 1-2 punch of November 2015 when the World Anti-Doping Agency suspended Moscow's anti-doping center, stopping them from doing really anything in terms of analysis, sampling. They couldn't do anything. They were suspended. This was days after an independent commission had found that there was systemic doping in Russian athletes. Then days after that, the World Athletics governing body, the IAAF, voted to prohibit any Russian athletes from field and track events straight away. But don't worry, this story doesn't matter. Stop watching this, because these details, they don't matter. The next 4 years saw a slew of confessions, investigations, sanctions, and documentaries. 1 World Cup, 2 Olympics, one of which Russian weightlifters were banned by the IWF and subsequently the IOC. In the meantime, Russia got rid of 2 former directors of the Russia Anti-Doping Agency. And when I say got rid of, I mean got rid of. And Grigory Rodchenkov, one of Russia's top laboratory directors, was fired and had to flee to the US for safety. And he was the linchpin of the 2017 US documentary Icarus, which, even though it doesn't matter, you should watch. It's a great documentary on Grigory's escape and what he was involved in, really. You also hear a lot from the water investigations leader, Dick Pound, which I just kind of wanted to say Dick Pound. It's sort of a name that I want. It just seems so strong. And just in case you're looking it up right now, he doesn't have a former porn career, but he probably used his time a little bit more wisely, to be honest. But totally don't watch that documentary. It's a waste of time. You're better off watching Kevin Can't Wait. There's great episodes out right now. That's a better use of your time. Which all leads to December 2019, when the world was dismissing COVID. Russia were banned by WADA for 4 years. Now, this ban has since been reduced to 2 years, which counts them out of the Tokyo 2020 games happening at the moment and the 2022 World Cup next year. But then, how exactly are they 4th in place for gold medals in the Olympics at the moment? Fuck, this is why 2019 Ryan should have read past the headlines. But athletes who can prove they are untainted by the doping scandal will be able to compete under a neutral flag. What? This ban means nothing. A ban is either a ban or it's not a ban. So the deal is, Russia are competing in Tokyo 2020 under the name of the Russian Olympic Committee. The ROC. The ROC cannot use the Russian name, the flag, or the anthem, and they must be presented as neutral, a neutral athlete, a neutral team. What they are allowed to do, however, is that everything needs to say the ROC, not the full name. Although, you know what, turns out they can say Russia as long as it's not more prominent than neutral team or neutral athlete. And they can use their flag's colors. They're allowed to do that. Now, they were just like, you know what, we don't actually want to use our colors because, it doesn't matter that much to us. Obviously, I'm joking. Of course they used that shit. They used anything they could, which is basically the same thing, is it not? Now, I know that there was a Sherlock Holmesian investigation into all 335 members that they let into the ROC, but it's still Russia. Everybody can say stupid shit like the F word, but everybody knows what everybody's talking about when you say the F word, right? Falafel. And just because you're saying they're not doping doesn't mean that it's not Russia. Just because you're saying it's not Russia doesn't mean that it's not Russia just because we aren't saying the word Russia. Oh wait, but we are saying the word Russia because it's called the Russian Olympic Committee. But you know what? Silly, uneducated me, because actually this isn't the first time this has happened. This happened at the last Olympics, and I admittedly didn't watch those Olympics. On July 2016, WADA recommended to the IOC that it ban Russian athletes, and the IOC were like, go fuck yourself. Instead, we're going to leave it up to each individual sports federation to decide. But then they thought about it for a little bit. And then they were like, oh, how about we form IOC, we form our own panel, and we go through every Russian athlete with a fine-tooth comb individually. And they wound up clearing 278 athletes. And all that umming and ahhing by the IOC, listening to WADA, listening to their bank accounts, well, that was probably because in September 2017, it was reported that 17 anti-doping organizations around the world were banging down their doors, pretty well asking them, what the fuck? But maybe those organizations were forgetting that they were dealing with a sporting organization that for 20 years, one of its biggest sponsors was McDonald's. So following those investigations for the 2018 Winter Olympics, the IOC found 169 Russians not to be connected with doping at all. They let them into those Olympics in a deal which was really similar to the one that's just been struck for Tokyo Olympics under just a rash of rules, of very stringent rules. And they competed as an Olympic athlete from Russia, or. According to a Russian tabloid, 86% of Russians really didn't feel all that hot about having a Russian team, compete under a neutral flag in those Olympics. And I gotta tell you, this is probably really the first time that I agree with the Russians. 86% of me kind of feels the same about Tokyo 2020 and all this bullshit that's going on. That's probably going to go on in the World Cup next year. So that's everything I have to say about that story, and that's everything I have to say for today's show. That's the end of it. So let me know in the comments below what you think about this whole ROC thing. Like, does it matter to you at all that they're in it? Do you think, oh, they're very trustworthy, or is it just not a thing in your mind because it's like, it's the Olympics? And also, just let me know, what are your zombie apocalypse plans? Is it New Zealand? Is it Tasmania? Is it somewhere completely different? Like, is it Martinique? I don't know. Drop a comment below, like, subscribe, do all that jazz, and I'll see you next week.
Oh, you dirty boy, you. Oh. Donald, I thought you were a gentleman.